And one thing that I've seen people also wondering is about like the potential risk associated. Maybe we should go down and explain what is this slashing risk that is not going to be present now and how it's going to impact in the future. From my perspective, and I think that this is kind of general knowledge, right? Staking is one of the most secure ways to gain yield from an asset, right?
Exactly. That's right. So, what we're going to be doing over the next month or two is putting out a lot of, collateral understanding of what this risk actually is. And I think our job is to really get people comfortable with, what it means to, stake your XRP and put it behind DeFi risk, right? So what is that DeFi risk? We kind of split it up into two main categories. There's technical risk and there's economic risks. On the technical side, you can think of that as smart contract hacks, right? So, we're looking at the Centaur models and then working with, the likes of, some of the larger, blockchain auditors out there and really kind of diving deep into how many times they've been audited, how, are the auditors reputable, at what frequency have these audits been updated, and really kind of going deep on the technical risk and the smart contract vulnerability side of things. And then on the other side, there's economic risks, right? So it's just governance attacks, liquidation failures, a lot of stuff that you've seen been happening frequently over the last couple of months, right? So we kind of look at those two main categories, and we're building, a back-tested institutional grade risk model, kind of taking those two into account and building, a capital efficient model where we're taking in, low yielding assets like XRP and putting them to work behind some of these risks. And I think, the way Anthony, our CEO, likes to explain it, which I think really helps visualize this for people, is, you can't right now put your XRP into an Aave or Morpho pool. And I think if you could, a lot of people would gladly do that, right? And when you do that, if you're depositing your XRP, if you're able to, into an blue chip Aave market or blue chip Morpho market, you're already assuming a lot of these same risks that Firelight would be protecting, right? So now you have that opportunity to gain likely better yield than you would by just depositing into Aave or Morpho and assuming the same risk, right? So if you think about it that way, it's a pretty compelling thing, right? So it's no different than just depositing your XRP or into Aave or Morpho, but now you're getting better yield and you're assuming the same technical and economic risks, right? So that's how we really try to visualize this for the LPs, the collateral holders, right? So it's a much more scalable and probably much more better use of putting your XRP to work behind Firelight versus directly doing this in the DeFi context.
Just for the listeners' context of what that means, who may not be familiar with Aave or Morpho, what are the sort of rough sizes of Aave and Morpho markets? In terms of the amount of assets that are deployed to those markets, and kind of who are the people that they would know that do deploy to these kind of markets that aren't just individuals. I just want the audience to get a sense of like how established these markets are.
Yeah, Hugo, that's a great point to point out. I mean, right now you can look at Aave as the largest almost digital bank on earth, right? And I think they've started to kind of put out, if you go on their website, they list every single bank in the world, your mom and pop commercial bank all the way up to JP Morgan's, and Aave is sitting there in one of the top 50 banks in the world by deposit size, right? So right now Aave is approaching almost 100 billion in assets, and then you have others like Morpho and Euler that are probably growing faster. They don't have as much as Aave's been around, it's been tested, has the largest TVL, but others like Morpho that are integrating into the front ends of the largest fintech apps in the world, like Coinbase and Crypto.com, right? So a little bit different model, but huge scale and huge distribution through some of the biggest crypto exchanges and fintechs in the world, right? So the scale that we're talking about is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. But one thing that is holding back that scale on their side is, as more traditional institutions and honestly just, users that are used to that banking experience where they do have that FDIC backstop or the insurance backstop, that part has been missing. And that's really what Firelight is looking to solve, right? We're not looking to, go after the degens who are already very comfortable taking on a huge amount of risks in DeFi. They've been doing that. Nothing's going to change the way that they operate, but the 300, the 500 billion that's sitting on the sidelines, looking to deploy, but needs that assurance, like, a FDIC like backstop or insurance being embedded into the protocol layer. That's what Firelight is going to be, bringing to the ecosystem.
Awesome. So to be blunt and to give a synopsis of that, Firelight is looking to ensure protocols that have already hundreds of billions of dollars in them. These are blue chip protocols that people already trust with hundreds of billions. And the Firelight protocol is being built with the idea that if it's successful, it leads to hundreds, if not trillions, more capital coming on chain. And one can imagine what that means for Firelight itself.
Exactly. And that's 100% right. Yeah, we think that insurance is, really the unlock to kind of bring in that next wave of capital. We've seen that, not just in crypto, but in every kind of, scale up in different markets. When I started as a reinsurance underwriter, cyber risk was this new thing that nobody could really figure out. And now the cyber risk insurance market is in the hundreds of billions of dollars, right? There's a lot of similarities there. And what you really need is to bring in, people that really understand risk, people that understand how institutions think about risk and really kind of speak in their language, right? So obviously we're a crypto native team, but, the Centaura team and myself come from institutional backgrounds. And, I think what we need to get to that next phase is really bring institutional, risk underwriting and understanding of what, those users on the other side that are looking to deploy need to get comfortable with.
100%. You can't just be crypto native only these days. You've got to have both sides of the coin.
Exactly. And I think that's, we have, with the Centaura team and myself that, that pedigree there. So that's why we're really excited. We think the timing couldn't be better. The conversations we're having, with the Flare ecosystem, but also with the protocols and, the large users of the protocols is, this isn't a nice to have. This is a must, right? So the demand is there and, we're happy to be able to connect that demand with a huge supply of XRP.